and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my April half wrap up, a lot of which is going to be about Trans Girl April. Arwen's hanging out. Anyway, first we have Galaxy, the Prettiest Star by Jadzia Axelrod and Just Taylor. This is, Arwen, what are you doing? Please don't do that. Arwen, stop it. This is very difficult to concentrate. This is a DC comic about Galaxy. Galaxy, or Taylor, is an alien and was a princess of aliens, but her world and family was attacked and she's one of a small number of survivors, and to hide from this particular type of aliens that wants to get rid of her, she was taken to Earth by another one of her people, and they were all disguised themselves as humans and her as a boy. And so this is about her reclaiming herself and refusing to wear the disguise anymore, and meeting people who will accept her the way she is, and difficulties with people who will not accept her. I highly recommend, 5 stars. Then we have Nimona. This is about a shapeshifter girl who decides she wants to be a sidekick to a local villain who she's a big fan of, and who's not very villainous. He has a moral code that involves not killing people, and she helps him fight against the institution of law enforcement who kicked him out from hero training because he became disabled. So right off the bat, you know they're kind of terrible people. You find out as you go along that they're very terrible people. It also involves our villain's nemesis slash frenemy. Yeah, it's very fight the power, and about friendship and misfits sticking together, which I really enjoy. 5 stars. Then Boys Run the Riot, the first volume. This is about a young trans boy who is not out, teaming up with another boy he's in class with to make a fashion brand, to kind of express themselves better, as they feel like they aren't able to do that very much because of rules and societal norms and stuff like that. Our main character is also a street artist, and so he does the designs for the clothes, and our other character does the marketing, and they rope some people into helping them, and the difficulties of, as the main character says, the nail that sticks out gets hammered. So the dangers of not conforming to societal norms. And I really enjoyed it and definitely intend to read the following volumes. So I gave Boys Run the Riot by Kyoto Gaku 5 stars. Then Rabbit Chase by Elizabeth Lepense. This, as you might be able to tell, is partially Alice in Wonderland inspired, but a much more kid-friendly version. And it's about a non-binary Anishinaabe young person who is going to see some petroglyphs, and while walking through the forest to give offerings, stumbles into this other world and meets various creatures and characters from Anishinaabe lore, who are taking the places of some Alice in Wonderland characters. And they meet the Red Queen, who is a land stealer, and who uses courts to subvert justice. And so it was cool to see that explained in a really accessible to kids way. And yeah, I really love the illustration style of this one too. Here's some pictures of the tea party. Yeah, I really like it. 5 stars to Rabbit Chase. Then The Hazards of Love, Book 1, Bright World by Stan Stanley. This also has a non-binary main character. This is a weird one. This is about this high schooler who feels like a bad person because they get bad grades, and we don't know why, but they pull the fire alarm at school at the beginning of the story, and has trouble with relationships, and so they make a deal with this cat who comes in their window to make them a better person in exchange for a drop of their blood, but instead the cat steals their name and their skin, sort of, and that makes Amparo into a sort of spirit creature who's not really a ghost, not totally dead, but who gets sucked into the bright world, where humans who are there get eaten by the creatures that are there, but the creatures there will also deal with you to get your memories and pieces of your soul, and so there are ways of surviving by selling those things and by doing labor for these creatures. And while our main character is trying to survive, they make some allies, they make some enemies, and they're trying to find their way back to the mundane world. The bright world has a lot of jungle plant sort of elements. Yeah, very interesting magical creatures in this bright world. This is just the beginning of the story. There's going to be quite a bit more, and I gave The Hazards of Love, book 1, 4 stars. Then we have Identity, A Story of Transitioning, a graphic novel by Corey Mason, and this is about Corey's childhood leading up to her transition, and how it was difficult, and she had dysphoria over what clothes she was allowed to wear. It talks a lot about what a big support her mom was, and that was really special to me, because if I were to tell a story about my life so far, my mom would be a huge factor and support in that as well. So I really liked getting to see that relationship. Her school was very bad about letting her use the bathrooms and be on the girls' teams when she came out. And part of her coming out was also on the internet, so she had some a lot of internet bullying. But through the internet, she was also able to find support and people who would back her. So I gave Identity 5 stars. All of those have been comics, manga, or graphic novels. So those are what I finished in the first 3 days. I will pick this video up closer to the middle of the month and tell you what I've been reading further on. See you then. So this is the continuation of my April half wrap up. And it is a bunch more books for Trans Girl April. I've got the non-binary flag going on with my eyeshadow, and I want to point out that not all non-binary people identify as trans, but this readathon, as well as the trans rights readathon from a couple of weeks ago, are meant to uplift both trans and non-binary people's books. So there will be authors that I'm talking about today who either identify as trans or non-binary or both, and that goes for the previous section of this video where I didn't mention that yet. Now, the book I'm going to start with is by Sim Kern, who started the Trans Rights Readathon. This is The Free People's Village, which was an ARC, and it's actually not coming out till like the fall, maybe September. I have had a lot of thoughts about this book. If my review sounds a little rehearsed, it's because I've been up late at night during my various bouts of not being able to sleep, which happens all the time, but I would be thinking about this book and how I wanted to phrase my review of it. Did I feel any positive emotions while reading this book? Yes. Did those times when I was feeling positive things make up about 5% of the book? Also yes. Not only is this not a feel-good book, I would qualify it as a feel-bad book, because if you are a highly empathetic person, or if you are already upset about the current state of the world, this will make you feel bad. That doesn't mean it's a bad book. I actually think it's a really good book. I adored the characters, except for poor Maddie, who is the main character, and her love interest, Red. I liked Zim at first, but with the multiple days of reflecting, I realized that the positive attributes of Red were very much through Maddie's perspective, and by actually looking at their actions, Red is actually a very unlikable person, except for their unwavering loyalty to Just Us, who is another trans character who is basically Red's best friend. That was the most admirable and likable thing about Red. And the most likable thing about Maddie is that she cares quite a bit about Just Us as well, and the various other people who live in the Free People's Village. I don't mind an unheroic main character, which this main character is specifically meant to avoid white saviorism, because she is surrounded by black and brown people, and she is white, and the author is white, and so could only write from that perspective. The parts about her being a coward, I identified with, and like, yeah, when confronted with an actual flight or fight response, when I've been scared, I freeze or put distance between myself and whatever is scaring me. Like, that part doesn't, in my mind, make her unlikable. It's how she thinks about herself, and even when so many things are going on for other people, she is thinking about herself and whether she's doing the best perfect thing, rather than how she can help other people. And I don't think that was accidental. I think that was meant to show how white people center ourselves, even when clearly we're not at the center of what's going on. And that was a lot of the commentary that the book had to say. This is a alternate timeline where Al Gore won instead of Bush, and there's been a war on climate change done by the Democrats ever since then, and they've had a supermajority. And yet it's kind of talking also about how even if the Democrats, as they are now, were to win all of the elections, they would still be racist and classist and ableist, and would not fix society, and would actually probably continue to build a police state and rely on authoritarianism. In this case, they are building a hyperway through a historically black community where our main character happens to have band rehearsals, and her bandmates live there, and that's where they do their shows. And so that's how she gets involved. They and a lot of other people from the neighborhood and a lot of other leftist groups end up what's it called, having a sit-in sort of situation at the band venue, and that is called the Free People's Village. And it's about organizing and some, what I called in my Goodreads review, baby leftist theory, that Sim Kern is a leftist and anarchist, anti-capitalist, I think Marxist, and so they drip in and sort of simplify and explain a lot of concepts of, I believe that stuff is referred to collectively as leftist theory, because it's farther left than what is now considered liberal. I am a baby leftist, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But it talks about book recommendations like Black Marxism, and it talks about, and through the Black and Latinx and Indigenous characters explaining to our white main character how leftism works, we get that shown to us and kind of explained to us in the way that is accessible for people who are new to it, along with those book recommendations that I intend to read. Yeah, good book, 4 stars. I'm on my recording thing, it says I've been talking for 13 minutes. I hope that a lot of those were long silences while I tried to gather my thoughts, because that is too long to talk about one book. Then we have Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. I've seen people talk about this on BookTube and TikTok, and I feel like none of them mentioned that there is an autistic perspective character here, because I would have picked it up so much faster. I avoided picking it up even though I heard about it several months ago, because it's a lot of body horror, and there are a lot of trans books that don't have body horror in them. So I'd rather read those. I don't like body horror. But it is also about fighting Christofascists in a post-apocalyptic type world, which I do like the idea of that. So since this was available as an audiobook from my library faster than any of the other trans books I wanted to read, I started listening to it and found out there was this autistic perspective character. He's only perspective for about 15% of the book, but he is also the love interest. There isn't a huge romance between him and the main character, but it is an undercurrent type of a thing. And the relationship overall with the main character is a pretty big part of the book. So, and its own voices, according to the author's Twitter. Also, the author is a trans man, and this is about a trans man who has been exposed to this like gene mutating stuff that will make him into a biblically accurate angel with like wings that have eyes on them and stuff, so that he will be a warrior for to fight the non-believers, who there are much fewer of because the Christofascists have released a plague upon the world that killed like 9 billion people. So it's set a little bit in the future when there's a few more people on Earth. But there's a lot less people. And it's kind of zombie apocalyptic, apocalyptic-y. Fortunately, our main character escapes from the Christofascists and finds a community of other queer and trans kids and starts hanging out with them and fighting with them, fighting against the Christofascists, and working to find food and stuff like that. And there meets Nick, the autistic person, who is kind of the leader of this group. Which, yes, it's also cool to see a autistic person who is not the Elon Musk variety of autism being in charge of things. By which I mean there is a white autistic cis man to fascist pipeline, unfortunately. Yeah, the queer community part was really great, and fighting the Christofascists was really great. But there was body horror, which was very unenjoyable for me. Other than the body horror, had a really good time. 4.5 stars. Then, What a Lovely Sight by Violet Cat. I am in a mood where I want to read monster romances. I still want to take part in a trans rights readathon while doing that, so I searched trans monster romances on the internet and actually found a post that had a list of queer and trans monster romances, like half of which were trans ones. So several of them are on KU, so I'm gonna wait until I re-up my subscription. But one of them was What a Lovely Sight by Violet Cat. This is like 130 pages. It's not erotica. It does not have any sex scenes in it. So if you're interested in a monster romance without those, this is for you. It's also polyamorous. We have a bi girl, a bi boy, and a bi agender person. The agender person is also, I don't remember the name of the species, are big and have fur on most of their body, and they're blue, and they have big black wings. The book also says that this species is asexual as a whole species. The whole species is also agender, but I don't know if that asexual is referring to they don't have sexes or they don't experience sexual attraction. I don't know in which way that word is being used, but I'm going to take it as being they don't experience sexual attraction, but they do experience romantic attraction, and they have a little romance between these three, and it's really cute. It's very short, so I won't say much more than that, except that there are bad people after them, and they have to protect each other. 5 stars to What a Lovely Sight. Okay, then we have my stack of books over here. The first of which is Defect by Nino Cipri. Really enjoyed this. It is the companion book to Finna, which I also really liked. Once again, though we have a trans and non-binary author, the main character is cis, but there is a non-binary love interest. This is about the character who calls in sick in Finna, forcing the main character to work at the same time her ex is working, and setting off that adventure. In this case, it's why he called in sick and how he is not a regular human. You figure that out pretty quickly. And and you find out like what exactly he is a little later on. Basically, he's weirdly dedicated to this company that is IKEA-ish. He has a different employee handbook than everybody else, and he lives on the property and he's never left the property. He notices a weird thing on his throat one day and calls in sick, and after that he is assigned to a team that is going through the store to get rid of all the mutant furniture in the store. Yeah. It's very weird, much like Finna, but very cool, and explores capitalism and people's how people are supposed to be dedicated to their workplaces even when their workplaces consider them disposable. I took a little break because my mom started a load of laundry, so the pump next to me went off, and put on these because I remembered that they have them, and I thought they were appropriate for this video. Callie and the Champions of Helston by Esme Sam Smith. I love this so much. It gave me nostalgia despite being quite different from Paige and Ellen of the First Adventure by Tamora Pierce, which are the middle grade beginnings of these series quartets that kind of age up with the protagonist, about lady knights and people trying to enforce gender roles and stuff like that. And this is about Callie, who wants to be a knight, but they were not allowed to because the specific city that runs the kingdom and like has the king and the knights and everything is very transphobic and sexist, and does not recognize that Callie is non-binary. Girls have magic and boys have swords, and boys with magic are mistreated, and women who do anything with their magic other than be meek and mild are also mistreated. So Callie has been living away from society for a while because their father took them away from their transphobic mother so that they could live as themselves, and found a little queer community out in the woods, and then decides but then is called to Helston by the rulers there because the prince needs training and is not taking well to sword fighting. And Callie goes with their dad, wants to become a knight and train, but cannot, and is forced into the women's quarters, and is constantly misgendered by the person in charge there. And yeah, the author talks about at the beginning, it might not be safe for everyone to read, but if you're in the right place to read it, I think it's really wonderful, because Callie eventually forms this little misfit squad of people who do not fit their gender roles, and it's really lovely and wonderful, and it's about overcoming all of those transphobia and sexism. Also has fighting of dragons, and I just really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that this generation will have this to grow up with in addition to Tamora Pierce's works. Then we have Fine, a comic about gender by Rhea Wing. This is a bunch of interviews with both trans and cis people, but mostly trans people, about gender and how they were raised and how they realized they were trans, or realized that gender was not working for them the way it was being enforced, and lots of different experiences. Let me see if it lists the chapters. Yeah, so it talks about how do you know what to call yourself, femininity, masculinity, how race interacts with gender, expression of gender, body feelings, hormones, healthcare, what language to use, being unseen, relationships, housing issues, because there are a lot of trans homeless people, bathroom issues, queer community. Rhea is non-binary and kind of gradually figured that out through this project. And yeah, I really appreciate all the subtopics that were talked about, and how, because it was based on interviews, it had a lot of different perspectives and people didn't always agree on the same things, and it isn't like an authoritative, this is how it is. It was just people's experiences and their theories, and I really appreciated that. I think this is like really helpful if you want to get a big variety of ideas about gender and transness all in one place, as well as get a surface level introduction to a lot of the different difficulties that trans people face in specifically US society, because that is where Rhea Wing was doing the interviews. Then we have Genderqueer, which is another, that one was a comic. This is more of a graphic novel. What's the difference? I couldn't tell you. But I really like the illustration style, and it's all about Mayako Babe's personal journey with gender growing up, and also exploration of your sexuality, because he is also asexual, so it's always cool for me to find another asexual person. He talks about, for example, your experience with a pap smear exam and how awful it was. And those are awful for a lot of people because they are not done carefully, because people who get pap smears are not believed about their pain and are generally not considered important or worth listening to or worthy of decent care in medical settings, unfortunately. So really good. I gave Genderqueer 5 stars. Last one, Heart Takes the Stage by Steens. This is the only one where the back of the book does not talk about the author's identity. So I'm going by what I've been told and what I've seen on social media about Steens, who uses they them pronouns. Yeah, I got this off a list of graphic novels and comics by trans people. So that's what I'm going with. This is about 4 friends in middle school. Once again, very cute illustration style, though very different from the others we've seen so far. Navigating school and wanting to be a theater star and being geeks and having trouble with homework and getting along, and I really like this section on there's a teacher strike in here, and how everybody feels about the teacher strike and the importance of teachers being able to strike and the importance of funding for schools. So yeah, I really enjoyed all that, and I gave Heart Takes the Stage 4 stars. So that's what I've read in the first half of April. In the next half, I will be doing more to take part in the disability readathon. I'd love to know how April is going so far for you, if you have a favorite book that you have read this month already, and what is your favorite graphic novel or graphic novel on your TBR. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about a sword for Sir Callie, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!